And welcome to another episode of Ernestly Speaking with your host, Ernest Owens, myself. So today has just been a crazy day. You know, I've just noticed that there's so much developmental stuff going on in the city around me. You know, I used to go to Penn, as you all know. It doesn't look the same when I went in 2010. I think there was a place called Philly Diner that was on 39th and Walnut, and I used to go there all the time. I mean, after all the frat parties, this diner used to be open, like the Denny's, you know, good food, fast food, greasy food, but it was still good food. And it was so interesting because now I look and there's like this tall, huge, gigantic building that's replaced it. And it's like another building that Penn owns, and it doesn't even have the great pancakes I used to eat at Philly Diner. And, you know, it's kind of frustrating, but at the same time, I know that it's making the city better, it's making the community better. And, you know, it's frustrating because even further than that, I'm noticing that that abandoned church that used to be around 40th and Chestnut Walnut area, that's now become a Dunkin' Donuts, a Jake's sandwich shop, some sushi burrito place nearby it, and then right near it, of course, is McDonald's, because McDonald's is like everywhere. I mean, you just can't erase it, like God. But anywho, I just have noticed that this is gentrification. And I've been known this, but I never thought like how fast this issue was going to take place, especially in Philadelphia. And I thought maybe this is a Penn thing, because what used to be, University City District, it used to be the bottom. And then to be more specific, it used to be called the Black Bottom, because a lot of black people lived there. And then they got pushed on out in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. And now you have this big, huge Penn metropolis. And I thought this was only a Penn issue. I thought this was only a university issue. But as I began to look a little bit further, I realized that this is even happening at Temple. Yes, Temple. There I was told, you go to parties and you go right back to campus. But it's become a bigger thing over there now. I mean, there's movie theaters there. And I'm like, okay, I see you, Pearl Theater at Temple. I see all the new locations. And, I said to myself that the best way to have this conversation is to talk to people who's actually kind of had these experiences, with it, from both sides of the aisle, from, Penn and to Temple, from the west to the north, and to figure out, what are the similarities, what are the differences, and how do people really feel about it? So, normally I would say Penn is first, but today ladies are first, and this young lady is representing Temple. So I would love to bring it to us, let us know what you think. So hello, what's your name?
Hi, my name is Ashley Caldwell. I am a student at Temple University.
So, are you from Philadelphia?
Yes, I am.
Oh, wow. So you're from Philly?
Yes.
Right, and I'm born in Chicago, grew up in Houston. So for me, I'm just experiencing this from a 6-year, experience of living in Philadelphia. But yeah. What are the differences at Temple, and how's it been since you've, been in Philadelphia?
There are a lot of differences. There are a lot of areas that were abandoned, that were, filled with, drug addicts and different things of that sort. And Temple came in and it beautified it. It put in, student campuses. It put in Temple services like student health services, the gym, different things of that sort. But it's hard because you have other people who are still there who are like, no, this is my livelihood. This is what I grew up on. I don't have anywhere else to go. This is what I know. I'm living in a house that my great grandfather bought and purchased, and now I'm living here. And for you to force me out, that's not happening. There's too many memories in these areas. So that's one of the biggest issues, is that, a lot of people in North Philly are more outspoken about not letting Temple take over certain areas.
Wow, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So they're kicking people out. Wow. And it's crazy because I never thought about the power of home ownership. I lived in apartments. I live in a studio apartment in West Philadelphia right now. But families owning property, owning, history and what that means to people. You never hear issues and stories of people feeling like they have to leave because of this beautification. There is some benefits to it. I mean, I say, oh, wow, that block was an abandoned church that was there, that was this big, ugly stain in the middle of this beautiful experience. I'm like, I'm not in Kansas anymore when I cross 40th and Chestnut. So it's interesting to be able to, see this side where there are some people that are leaving that don't want to leave. And it's not like every person getting kicked out, of North Philly are necessarily drug addicts and prostitutes and, just living in vacant lots. There are people that have had storied histories, memories in places like that. And it's just interesting how it's culturally changing the space. But I wonder what people think about it on a different level at Penn. I mean, there's people that do, work in education fields, public services and resources. Like, what does it mean to people in Penn, especially people who attend? Like I said, I'm a transplant. I'm, directly from Houston, coming here to Philadelphia. So for me, I kind of like some nice restaurants, but I do feel uncomfortable when I hear the stories about all the different people who are having to change locations and routes. So I wonder what people, that's currently, in the Penn civic environment and community think about these issues. Yeah, sure, come up. So hello, tell us your name.
Hi, I'm Christian.
Hi, Christian. So tell us about your experiences, at Penn and beyond.
Well, I think we have to be very careful about our language, right? So you guys talked about, kicking people out and moving them out, but it's a little bit more nuanced. So they're not exactly putting them out in a very particular way. It's a lot more nuanced. So we're talking about raising property taxes, raising property values so that people can't afford to live there anymore, so they're forced to move, right? So they're not necessarily going door to door, putting people out of their home, but see you later, alligator. It's more about doing things that are a little bit more, I don't want to say sinister, but a little bit more insidious.
Shady.
A little bit more insidious, right?
Shady,
So I think we have to be really careful about the way they're targeting communities so that we can better combat those policies, right? So I think that we have to be really careful around really learning about and really focusing on what exactly they're doing in these neighborhoods.
I mean, so if they're not kicking them out physically, do you think raising rent prices is a way to kick somebody? I mean,
oh, absolutely. But I think that there are other ways too, right? So changing the way a school looks in a neighborhood, right? So that we can attract people who can afford those higher property values, right? So when we, maybe build schools or attempt to change schools so that different demographics can attend those schools, right? Public schools, that's a little bit more nuanced and a little bit more slide than say you gotta go, right?
Right, time to go, right? Thank you. So it's not kicking people out. It's just, going to the movie theater and saying, just by the way, ticket price was $5, but we're gonna raise them to $9. And then people are gonna say, well, I didn't come with $9. Well, I guess you can't see the movie. I feel like that's kicking somebody out. Price gouging. Call it for what it is. It's price gouging. You go to the party, college party. I used to go to the frat parties at Temple and Penn, and you go there, you're thinking it's $5 before 11. You know how much it's gonna cost after 11. You get there, they talking about $20. Like, bye. And they say, oh, we didn't kick you out. We didn't say you couldn't come. We just got paid $20. It's like, no, that means you don't want me to come because you just didn't change the game. You just can't just change it like that. That's how I feel about gentrification in many ways. That I'm going to take it there. I think it's ethnic cleansing. I think it is whitewashing. I think that it's coming to places that are predominantly of color and coming in. Have you ever heard of gentrification where black people come in and white people leave? No, that's not called gentrification. That's called the poverty rate increasing. Okay, like let's be real here. There's people that use this word reverse gentrification. Reverse migration, all this nonsense, right? All this wordage, and no one wants to call it for what it is. This is really what it happens, in my opinion. Somebody sees an area that wasn't popping. I'm gonna describe it like dating. I'm making a stretch here, but you're gonna work with me here. You see this, guy, because everyone always uses girls as an example. You see this guy who isn't all that, average Joe, kind of crusty, got bad nails, got some potential, but you're not buying it. You don't want to, answer his calls. You don't want to talk to him. He finds a thing called soap and cologne. He says, I'm going to clean myself up a little bit, straighten myself up. Someone's invested some money in buying me some soap and some cologne. So they, clean up themselves a little bit. You was chilling over here with the VIP dudes, and you're like, okay, VIP guys, I'm hanging out with them. And then you realize, oh, he smells a little bit better over here. There's some potential, but he might need some shoes. So I'm just gonna add some shoes over there. Then you see that he's wearing them shoes pretty nice. I'm gonna add a coat over there. Then you say, wow, he got a coat too? He might actually be my type. I'm going to take a risk. You dump the VIP players, you come over here. Now see, all the other people in the back of the line that thought that, he was all right back in the day, they now can't even meet the quality of dating him anymore because now he's become a VIP player because you done taken his worth. So now all the other people that was lined up to get a piece, they got to go. That's gentrification. Snatching somebody's man that you didn't have no interest in before because you put a couple of clothes on them. That's gentrification. Gentrification is when you see a block of communities that don't look good, then people start throwing a little something here. That's what they did to West Philly, okay? There was, I saw it happen on an entire block, right? There was, these regular average Joe barber shops, these little small shoe polishing places that were old. No one really went there. You saw it when you wanted to go. No one cared. There was old buildings and vacant lots that people just, sometimes did crime on or sometimes just didn't do anything to them. They were just dirty. Then someone says, you know what, I'm just gonna put one little yoga bar shop here. And then someone said, okay, well, you put a yoga shop there? Well, let me just go ahead and add, a beer garden. Because for some reason, this beer garden being in like an area where people don't normally, drink their beer outside, you put in a beer garden in a community of a predominantly black community, like who drinks beer in a garden? Like who can afford to drink beer? It doesn't make sense, right? You say to yourself, why are these things being added? It doesn't make sense for the community. You know why it doesn't make sense for the community? Because they don't want that community to clearly be there. Who does it make sense for it tends to be? Who drinks beer in gardens? Not black people. I mean, is that taking a stunt? Like, I don't know any black people. I'm from Chicago. I grew up in Houston, Texas. We ain't drinking beer in gardens. It's just not happening. I mean, we'll drink beer at home in the leisure, but beer gardens and cheese and wine in the daytime, I mean, what are you looking at if you live in a neighborhood that's not being developed? Let's just look over there at the foyer. Let me just see, some of the, non-developed buildings. No. A beer garden represents, and these areas represents places and spaces that have potential to be something that is not black. It tends to be spaces and places where people don't want to be seen. So, going to Temple, I'm seeing they got Chipotle now. I'm getting impressed. I didn't even know they had a Wendy's. They got the Pearl Theater now. I'm looking like there's a Whole Foods market at some store, some good grocery store there now. And I'm looking like, okay, Temple, I see you guys getting organic over here, I just wonder what that makes people feel like because, I know college kids cannot afford, Whole Foods shopping on a regular basis. Trader Joe's around University City on the 20th block. All this stuff, I'm like, there's no way that they're making this for college people. So how do you feel about the Temple? How are Temple students feeling about the new developments that's happening over there? Because, it looks like it's fun. I can only imagine.
It is. But
Yeah.
because of the fact that it is right there near the college student, normal prices that you will find in South Philly are hiked up in North Philly.
Really?
So, if, for instance, for a hair store in Yaden, I can get Marley hair for $4 or $5.
Oh, good.
There's $8, $9, $10 a pack.
Wow.
So yeah, a lot of times, because it's right there near that university, those prices go up. There's a Fresh Grocer right there, and Fresh Grocer is so high to the point where it's like, okay, now I have to go all the way back to where I used to live at to get the cheaper price.
Yeah.
So it is fun, and you can have a lot of fun there. It's just a lot of times when you got students there who aren't working as much and who aren't living off of their parents.
Right.
It's hard to keep up with that because of the prices are so high.
The prices are high.
Yep.
The prices are high. Thank you. The prices are high. The prices are so damn high. I agree. It's crazy because there's a Fresh Grocer in my area, and then there's an Aldo on 46th. And so once I started realizing the benefits of Audi, I fell in love. These shoes are from Aldo, so I love it. But when I found out the difference between Audi and shopping there and versus going to Fresh Grocer in these places, it made me realize how crazy distance make the dollar. Seriously, it's about location. And when you're looking at communities that were there, clearly their environment was not conducive to a Chipotle or a Dunkin's Donuts. And it's not to say that they should just be wiped out simply because of the type of money that they have and don't, because where do they go? If everyone keeps pushing people somewhere, where are they going? If they're not going to live in the communities in which they're from, where are they going? That's the $1 million question that I keep asking people all the time, is that where do people go after it's all being said and done? Where are people going to live? Where are people going to eat? Where are people going to dine? It's just crazy when those things happen. So it's really frustrating to see, these things take place. And I'm trying to wrap my mind around the idea of imagining a community that can sustain itself without that. So I wonder, what are the political dynamics that shapes these issues? Especially for someone at Penn, like, what does politics play a role into shaping these issues? Yeah.
So I don't want to speak for all of Penn, but I can say from my own.
You have political experience.
From my own experience, I mean, I think one of the critical pieces of gentrification, which people often point to as a benefit, is job growth, right? So we want to employ people, especially want to employ people in impoverished neighborhoods. But here's the problem with that. So a lot of times when we do have these kinds of jobs crop up, they're not meaningful careers, right? So they either part-time work or they pay a very low wage. So I think that the crux of making gentrification work for everyone involved is to inculcate and create jobs that are often meaningful. So full-time, substantive work, which seems to be a problem to create in these communities, right? Because people don't seem to know how to invest in real, meaningful jobs. But we want them to get paid high wages, right? Because once we do that, those people can stay in those neighborhoods and reinvest in those communities themselves instead of relying on an outsource or external source to invest in those communities, right? So that's the big issue. I think also we really have to figure out a way to include schools in these plans, right? So let's not forget schools. So if we do a gentrified neighborhood, if we keep those people in that neighborhood, those children there can benefit from that better school, not new children moving into the school. I'm gonna give you an example. So, in West Philadelphia, in about 5 to 10 years, those schools may look a lot different than they do now. So right now they're about 99% Black and 1% free reduced lunch, right? So what if we could figure out a way to keep those students in that school but decrease their free or reduced lunch rate? I mean, that would be, epic. So why not try that? There's so many different forces at play here. I think it's very difficult for politicians to untangle the knot because they don't want to, hurt one constituency. And I think when you look at West Philadelphia in particularly, those grocery stores that you mentioned, right? First Grocer, you mentioned. But once you reach a certain point, those things disappear. So then we have food deserts. So you have an influx of grocery stores here, but nothing up here. And why is that? So who are these things actually for, and who are the things actually benefiting? Let's look at all these things.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. So real. So that's a good point. I mean, to some degree, there is a lot of different forces happening at once. But one of the biggest issues that I have is elected officials. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones pushing the contracts, right? They're the ones signing it, right? I mean, I'm going to take it to South Philly. Look at Point Breeze. Is anyone talking about Point Breeze? Have we forgotten what's going on at Point Breeze? You have that big, boisterous city council representative that's, for the community, for Point Breeze, by Point Breeze. But, I mean, come on. I mean, when you're looking at the way in which they have had so many buildings intimidate these small buildings. I mean, you get these big, huge buildings that are residential spaces, beer gardens up the spine there. And they're saying that this is supposed to be mixed income. But the reality is no mixed income. I know how to do averages. It's like making a smoothie. You get a bunch of big vegetables and you throw a small couple of berries in there. And then you say, this is a mixed income. This is a mixed smoothie. Like there's all types of different variety. And you're looking at, no, you have all the big fruit here and a couple little berries sprinkled in there. And you call that diversity? That's not the type of diversity and a mixture of income and buildings, okay? There's no support for those buildings. I mean, at the end of the day, there's this idea of job growth. Like everybody wants to believe in this idea that there's gonna be a big, huge job growth. Everyone, wants to get these jobs, but no one's questioning what kind of jobs they're getting. So the point about low-income jobs and saying like Penn is the #1 private employer in the city, right, which is commendable. But when you're looking at the type of jobs they get, a lot of these workers complain about the wages, complain about the hours, complain about all these types of services. So then you realize Is job growth the question? Because at the end of the day, what does it mean for parents in West Philadelphia, workers at West Philadelphia and West Philadelphia at Penn that work in the school but cannot afford or be able to give their kids a great education so they can one day attend their school? Think about that. How many parents that work at the University of Pennsylvania, not in the academic setting, that work the 9 to 5 or the part-time, and they live in West Philadelphia and they take their kids to some of these schools, and regardless of how great their child does, their child possibly cannot attend the University of Pennsylvania because of the quality of education. You can literally count on your fingers how many kids in West Philadelphia High School, in a West Philadelphia high school setting, can even apply or even get admitted directly from that school without having to take any, breaks or go to different community colleges or go different places, and how many concessions they have to make. I mean, it's ridiculous how small that number is. But yet this school, this institution, has some of the biggest money and endowments and programs and everything you can think of, and yet for the community in which they're dwelling in, and some people will argue, encroached upon, there is a small subset of people that actually can benefit from the institution outside of simply just working for it. And I think that that's the heart and the brutality of gentrification, is the aspect of, you think that because you're giving people something like some jobs, which jobs aren't handouts, because they still have to work for you. People actually have to do the work and barely get paid at that. It's a small stint to a larger issue. So you gave someone a job to mop off the floor. It's not like they're giving them professorships. It's not like they're diversifying the faculty. It's not like the many black people that live in those communities are being put on faculty to teach. No. So the university can continue to be predominantly white. Most of the students that go there can continue to be predominantly white. Most of the systems of education and power and the money that be and invested interests that be continue to be predominantly white. But yet their workers, the communities they serve, the people that are in the schools in which they, write little checks and do community service projects with, continue to be lower income people of color that can never reach or try to climb to that level of status. And those are the problems and those are the consequences. So I don't care anymore to see another coffee shop. I'm sorry, bistro. I'm sorry. I don't care anymore to try some new sushi burrito because you knocked off some medical center. I told a congressperson that represents Point Breeze, he was asking, what can we do with the vacant land? Somebody's got to do something with the vacant land. And I'm saying that's funny because if you're in a food desert, there's so much you can do with that vacant land. Get a grocery store there. Get a co-op there. Get a food co-op there. Put some health clinics there that provide resources to people. Get your community to be able to get tested for STDs and HIV and other issues. Let them get their blood pressure tested. Let them get resources for credit retention. Let the school systems find better ways to counsel people. Use that constituent money and taxpayers' dollars to actually build resources there. No one wants a damn beer garden. There's nothing there. When you're looking at high crime rates, food deserts, drugs in communities, the least what they need is to go somewhere and drink in public. I don't understand what the medicine is for that. So you mean to tell me a community with high poverty, a bad education system, domestic violence, abuse, all these issues, you think the best remedy for that vacant space is to put a beer garden there? Exactly. The concept of that doesn't make any sense to me. Because at the end of the day, when you're looking at who's in that beer garden, who can pay $9 for a small little bottle of beer, that's not the black guy across the corner. That's the white person that's coming in and looking for a good time. Gentrification is not a Philadelphia issue. Look at Brooklyn. Go to Brooklyn. Brooklyn don't look anything like it used to look. Okay, what used to be, a very prized possession of communities has now become a situation in which it's become basically impeached. They've kicked out people of color, people with high prices to make money. It's capitalism. And it doesn't matter if you have a white elected official or a black one, money is green. And that money and that color of money does not discriminate. When you look at elected officials that want to get finance, fundraisers, people like myself, most people, in these communities don't afford to pay for the fundraisers to rally behind these candidates. So they need the money from the labor unions. They need the money from the contractors, the construction workers. They need the money from the big unions and the PACs to pay for their big deal. And their price and their cutoff and their signature cutoff is simply giving people the leverage to be able to do this gentrification. So it's never just, there's no victimizing in this. And I say this in conclusion to tell listeners and those watching this show, it's deeper than just simply a bunch of companies coming in, sweeping out. You gotta hold your elected officials accountable more. You gotta start talking to your community organizers. You gotta start looking at the blocks and areas and figuring out what you wanna do with that land and let your elected officials know that. You gotta petition, you gotta protest. We gotta come together on these issues in our neighborhoods because at the end of the day, we need to take this issue higher than just our elected official. You can call his phone and tell him how you feel, and constituent services will hang up the phone. You got to take it there to center of the city. You got to take it there. You got to call this out when you see it. You have to speak it out into existence because at the end of the day, if one community in Philadelphia is being gentrified, we all can get gentrified. It's happening in South Philly. It's happening in West Philly. It's happening in North Philly. It's going to happen all over until we as a community recognize that as one Philadelphia, any group that's oppressed or gentrified, same thing, that oppresses us all. Thank you so much for listening.